Yup, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here. You see, sequels are often a disappointment when compared to the original, so when Topaz released a new version of their creative upscaler, Astra 2, I knew I was going to need to give this follow-up the full cinematic viewing it deserves. Today we're going to cover what is Astra 2 and what's it for, how exactly does it work, and what are the best settings, how do you prompt for it? Wait, you need prompts for this upscaler? Yes, in fact you do. And I'm even going to be sharing a free tool that you can use to generate all of the Astra 2 prompts that you will ever need. And finally, we'll discuss when and where Astra 2 saves the day and when and if it goes full RoboCop 3. So get your popcorn ready and let's jump right in. Astra 2 is the next evolution in cloud-based creative video upscaling from the fine folks at Topaz. Now when I say creative, that's in contrast to the Precise family of models, which strive for outputs that almost entirely hold to the source clip's overall look and feel, with subtle improvements to things like human faces, eyes, or skin textures while maintaining consistency. Creative upscalers, on the other hand, lean into exaggerating things like surfaces and textures, adding new details to things like text and scenery, and generally amplifying any fine details within a video clip. They are ideally suited for scenes that focus on things like macro photography, wide outdoor scenes with lots of small details, or even animations with subtle surface textures. Anything where you want to exaggerate all of the little bits and don't really need as much shot-to-shot continuity. How this works on our end is pretty simple. Drag or load your desired clip into the interface like you would with any Astra upscaling task. On the top left of the screen, switch your model mode to creative and Astra 2 should be selected by default. You'll be greeted by 3 new settings: a creativity slider, a sharpness slider, and the Ghost of Christmas Future. Hold on, apparently I'm incorrect on that and it is in fact a prompt window. So what do all these sliders and boxes actually do? Well, creativity is probably the most confusing. Within a lot of AI tools, creativity sliders will determine how much your model will adhere to or disregard your prompt input. At higher creativity levels, prompts are all but ignored. That is sort of the opposite here. At low creativity settings, Astra 2 will more precisely hold to your original source clip while upscaling. Conversely, at higher settings like 4 and 5, it will more aggressively exaggerate whatever it thinks it's looking at within your scene. But here's the catch: that creativity will be constrained by whatever you enter into the prompt window at the bottom. In other words, at higher creativity levels, the prompt is actually more impactful than at lower levels. Let's take a closer look at one of these shots with heavier textures, like this octopus here, to see just how this creativity prompt interaction works. Here, the creativity is set to 3, and the sharpness to 2, but if we compare that to an output with creativity of 5 and a sharpness of 4, it is pretty hard to see the difference. That's the prompt reigning in the model's output. For an example of a YOLO promptless scene, take a look at this motorcycling llama I generated in Seedance for one of my open art videos. Without a prompt, Astra 2 started hallucinating a helmet onto Furry Knievel's head anytime the shot got wide enough to trip it out. It makes sense. Astra 2 sees a motorcycle race and slaps a helmet on our guy because safety first. Don't get me wrong, I've inadvertently run some scenes without a prompt and had the generation come out okay, but I wouldn't recommend it. Even if nothing weird happens, sometimes you get this strange ghosting around the outside of objects or anything that's moving. I'm gonna cover everything you need to know about Astra 2 prompting in the next section, so stay tuned for that, but generally speaking, you always want to use a prompt. Let's nail down the slider settings first. Now, some of this will come down to a matter of taste, but I think medium to low sharpness settings look a bit more natural. In this example, I very much prefer 3 to the harsher result from a sharpness of 4. It doesn't look terrible in shots like this, but I think the slightly softer look of either a 2 or a 3 settings on sharpness is best. But ultimately, you're gonna have to judge sharpness for yourself. For creativity, assuming you're always pairing it with a strong prompt, I would recommend you set things a bit higher to either 4 or 5. Most of these macro, texture, and landscape shots you're looking at right now were upscaled at a creativity of 5 and a sharpness of 3, which to my eye is the happy place for Astra 2. It even works for shots that are a bit more abstract and out there. Higher creativity lets you take low-res mid-journey mush like this gauntlet and render out the fine lacework in the cuffs. And if there's one thing I'm known for, it's fine lacework. In retrospect, I could have probably gone with a lower creativity value for these lizards. As the scales became so exaggerated, they're starting to look pretty unnatural. But in general, use a strong prompt and a creativity of 4 or 5 and a sharpness of 2 or 3, and I think you will be happy with the outputs more often than not. Let's take a look at some animation type examples, which Astra 2 also excels at, by the way, while I explain effective prompting methodology for this new model. When you upload a clip, Astra 2 can make a guess, but it doesn't really know what your shot is about, so it might just hallucinate if you don't give it the proper semantic context, which is a fancy AI term for relationships between different inputs, like all the different parts of your scene. Astra 2 isn't gonna turn a selfie into Inception. It isn't a video editor. You don't tell it what to do, you tell it what you're handing it. I'm gonna link a really great article below from a blog called Build Fast with AI if you want to read more about it. But for our purposes today, understand that the best prompts for Astra 2 will describe things in the scene like the subject, the lighting, the environment, the mood, or any textures that are present. Is it a fantasy or a documentary? Is it a crowd shot or a video game? A claymation style animation or drone footage? You can describe lenses or focal lengths or film stocks, or you could check the description to this video. Because I created a Gemini gem that you could run on a free Gmail account hundreds of times a day if you want, and it will generate scene prompts specifically designed to give Astra 2 the semantic context it needs to nail your shot, even at higher creativity settings like 4 and 5. I use this gem for all of the upscales you've seen today, and it is very straightforward. Take a screen grab from your clip, drag or paste it into Gemini with this gem running, hit enter, and there you go. With the new Gemini Flash 3.5 model, these prompts come out super quick. Just copy and paste it into Astra 2, and once your sliders are set, generate away. Knowing that Astra 2 wasn't designed to significantly alter existing scenes, and that prompts are best suited for providing context, I decided to try and break all of those rules. Spoiler alert, I failed. I tried to keep it really simple. I took some shallow focus, bokeh background clips of light bulbs, and tried to alter my prompt inputs to convince Astra 2 that everything in the shot was in perfect focus. And I couldn't tell the shots apart. The model just doesn't do this. I even tried with these Christmas lights in the background. I tried with this lady waiting for a car service in the rain. More failure. Although it did manage to cover her in hallucination rain, I'm gonna talk about the downsides of creative upscaling in just a little bit. But for now, trust me when I tell you that trying to get Astra 2 to significantly edit your shot is a fool's errand. I would know, I'm the fool that just tried it. With that being said, Astra 2 can sort of make hallucinations work for you. One aspect of video upscaling that I have found all but impossible to work around is that anytime a human face isn't super close to the camera, there just isn't much an upscaler can do. You wind up with mushy nightmare faces. Similarly, low-resolution archival footage can be improved, but only so far. In theory, Astra 2, when correctly prompted, can fix shots with just these kinds of issues. This is an AI-generated crowd shot, so there are some really waxy mush people in the background. It's so bad in the back here that at one point this dude is like, "Lady, I'm trying to watch a game." I wasn't sure if Astra could do much with this when I sent it off, but I am very impressed with this outcome. This is not perfect to be sure, and this lady is still kind of tripping out in her seat over there, but it is miles better than the input. Wider crowd shots like this are even worse. AI faces this small are basically always a mess, but Astra 2 does a solid job. Don't get me wrong, it still looks like AI, but the faces aren't completely incoherent. The model is clearly identifying the mushy faces and inferring them into passably not total mush. I'm not totally convinced crowd upscaling is fixed, but Topaz is clearly on the right track here. And depending on your shot, it might work like a charm. Maybe it's not fair to call this hallucination if it's functioning more like creative inference problem solving. This 20-foot geode from the Natural History Museum is one of my upscaling stress tests. And on a good day, precise upscalers hand me a buzzy noise, while creative upscalers hand me a sloppy fluff. Those are technical terms, by the way. I am very smart. Astra 2 actually came up with a decent solve here. While exaggerated and not very accurate, with a solid prompt, it managed to capture the look and feel of standing in front of this geological wonder, right down to all the facets and glints and bits of chromatic aberration. How about early 1960s promotional films? No problem, apparently. Wait a minute, how did he get that earring? Late 1950s television commercials about folding televisions? This is the best outcome for this particular shot I have seen to date. The way Astra 2 comes up with textures for the patterned carpet and the plastic curtain and reconstructs a reasonable enough face. This footage started as interlaced, by the way, so a real mess. One of my favorite archival test subjects is this 16mm 1939 World's Fair footage. I have never gotten a decent outcome on any of the faces. The footage is just too low quality and the faces are just too small. So what Astra 2 was able to do with this is pretty impressive. There is certainly some warping going on, but this wide shot of the crowd and parade marchers, I have no idea if these people actually looked like this, but Astra 2 made them at least look like actual people. And that's a first for my testing, and I've been working with this shot for over a year. So clearly Astra 2 is the best upscaler ever, and you should use it all of the time for every possible situation. Okay, stop. All of this creativity has a downside. I've mentioned a few examples so far, but when Astra 2 does its extrapolation thing, it doesn't always know when to stop. TV Lady had several examples. If I speed things up, the shape of this vase is progressively morphing through the shot. The base of this plant hallucinates up some wheels. Those are always rad. And by the end of the shot, the lady's being haunted by a dead relative that lives in that painting. What's up, Grandma? Won't you ever rest? Some of the outcomes are pretty fun. It tried to turn this papier-mâché head into a real giant head, which is super freaky. I really dig that it put a tiny little shark face on the pizza that the boy is trying to feed to the big shark. It even does a little angry shark face at the big boy. It gave this elven warrior lady an undead blinking skull sidekick, which frankly is just my kind of storytelling, so that is super fun. But at the end of the day, many of these fine details are swimming and morphing throughout all of these shots. This guy's hat goes through several stages of being backwards and then forwards, and at one point this lady turns into, if I'm not mistaken, Metallica drummer Lars Ulrich. Please don't sue me. And speaking of metal, many of my elf ladies, and I do have many elf ladies, all of their adornments and tchotchkes were constantly morphing into different designs and skulls and faces, and just generally wouldn't stay consistent. I could see that getting frustrating and requiring a lot of masking and After Effects. If you noticed any other freaky hallucinations that I missed, hit me in the comments. Overall, I think the best use case for Astra 2 would be shots that are about the textures. Wide shots of scenery or crowds, archival footage where the faces and details have just been lost to time, or anything that starts so bizarre that it doesn't really matter how strange it gets. Stick with the precise family of upscalers if you have anything with human faces or when shot-to-shot consistency is more of a concern. For what it's worth, I have coverage of all those upscalers as well, right here in this playlist. But that's gonna do it for me today. Thanks for watching, have a good one.